What's up, ladies and gents? Welcome to another episode of Optimize Your Body podcast. Doing another solo cast today, and I'm going to do another Q&A. Always get really good feedback off these. And thanks, everyone, for writing in. So real quick before we get into it, the scholarship thing, free coaching, is going to be 3 months of free coaching instead of 6 months, right? I said 6 months last week. It's still there. You can still apply. There's still time to apply. It's been an overwhelming response of people applying for the scholarship. So what I've done is not only is I'm going to open it for longer, right? So you can still apply. You just got to click the one link in the show notes beneath this and simply answer. There's like 2 questions. I'm going to choose the winner based on why it's important to them and what it'll mean to them to really get into, the best shape they can get into within the next 90 days. So basically, one lucky winner is going to get a free 3 months of coaching. You heard it right. Free coaching from me for 3 months, which entails, everything's personalized. You're going to get personalized nutrition. You're going to get, customized training programming. You're going to get all the support you need, accountability. You're going to get access to all of our resources and everything. It'll literally be life-changing. So don't miss out on it. To be honest, you're a bit silly if you've been thinking about working with me or you'd like to really level up and you're not going to, at least apply for this. So, but that's up to you, right? Plenty of people have applied, so don't worry about that. Anyway, ladies and gents, what I'm also going to offer is 6 partial scholarships, right? So not only is the winner going to get free coaching, right, a full scholarship, basically I'm going to offer, I can definitely take on 6 partial scholarships, right? I'm not going to talk about details there, right? But long story short, you are still going to get scholarship, but it's going to be a partial scholarship, right? So anyway, let's move on. The link is in the show notes, right? So let's get into it. So basically, all the questions I've got here, I've got 4 questions. I'm going to run through them and try and answer them in as much depth as possible. Because what I think, ladies and gents, when I do this podcast, especially the Q&A, when I'm doing it on my own, I always think the audience is thinking, what's in it for me? Let's be honest. You're just thinking, right, what do I get out of this? What can I learn from it? And number one thing, ladies and gents, I want you to take away from anything that I do here is what can you implement? We've got information. We've got more information to us, available to us than any other time in human history. Information is easy to just listen to podcasts. You're already growth minded if you're doing that, by the way. You want to improve yourself just by listening to podcasts. So congrats, but implementation is key. So let's go stuck into the first question. And a lot of detail here, so thanks. Right, so basically, the first question is, I eat carnivore-ish, mainly meat and fruits, but I'm looking to cut carbs and eat more keto/carnivore for a month because I felt better eating strict carnivore when I did that for 6 weeks. My goal is to shred more fat, but I mainly notice my gut health and my digestion and also my overall energy levels are better when I eat strict carnivore. How long should I try going carnivore/keto before I reintroduce carbohydrates and other foods? So I love this question because this is actually what I'm doing right now. I'm actually just switching over to eating carnivore, /keto for literally 7 days. I'm going to do this for and see how I feel. Now, not to make it too much about me, but it was only last year that I actually started doing carnivore strict. I eat animal-based. You can maybe see the Carnivore Code book here behind me, or maybe not. The Carnivore Code by Dr. Paul Saladino was what really pushed me over the line to try it because I was getting issues myself with my guts and skin, and I still do. So this is why, it's way better, right? This is why I haven't gone carnivore now since October last year, and I'm actually going to do that now this week. And my girlfriend's actually doing it for 10 days as well, right? The reason she's doing it is to detach from sugar. Right, because she's been bulking and she's been building some muscle and she's doing really, really well. But she's just overeating sugar. She's just eating for the sake of it, and it gets like that sometimes, right, with sugar because it can become very addictive, those behaviors, right? So anyway, so I'm doing this now, so I can give you a bit of an insight into why I do it and what my approach is with doing keto/carnivore. But first of all, let me give you some education on this, right? So first and foremost, keto is when people say they're eating keto, they're not. Long story short, most people, they say that, I'm going to go keto. You're not. You're just going low carbs, right? Keto is actually really, really hard to do to get yourself into ketosis. You have to eat, get around about 70% of your total calories, for 70 to 85% of your total calories coming from fat. Do you know how much fat that is? And the rest protein, by the way. So the remaining 15 to 30% would be protein. That's a lot of fat, right? So basically, and there's not just like strict carnivore, right? There's not a great deal of variance in terms of the foods that you can really eat on keto, depending on the person. Some people couldn't get into ketosis easier than others. Some people have to be. Some people could eat bloody, an avocado or even some olive oil. Actually, not olive oil, but I don't know anyone who's eaten olive oil and got out of ketosis. But eating avocado, for example, people can come straight out of ketosis from doing that. So everyone is very much different. So long story short, that's what keto is. With carnivore, now carnivore is more kind of like a 70-30 generally. So 70% fat, 30% protein. You could even do like 60% fat, 40% protein. Now, you're probably thinking, what the fuck are all these percentages he's talking about? With percentages, I like to say this because, firstly, generally, you do need to be having a certain amount of fat to actually get your body to start using ketones as energy, as a primary energy source. In other words, being in ketosis. But also, when you're eating carnivore, you actually have to, you have to be having a certain amount of protein first and foremost, and you still have to be having a certain amount of fat to be fueling your body for energy, right? Because where are you going to get your energy from, right? Fat's an essential nutrient, and that is, the primary source of energy generally for humans, because in fats is where you're going to get most of your calories, right? And there's essential nutrients in fats that you really, really need. So anyway, moving forward. So remember, carbohydrates you can live without, right? You can survive without. I'm not going to say that's optimal. For most people, it's simply not, and I'll get to that. But you can't, if you had deficiencies with certain types of amino acids, in other words, proteins, and certain types of fatty acids that you get from, meat and mainly animal sources, saturated fats too, not just, monounsaturated fats. I'm talking about fats in general. You would end up with nasty deficiencies, and essentially you would, I hate to say it, you die a slow, painful death, right? To just give people, sorry to be grim, but just to give people an idea of how important, that's what they call essential nutrients, right? Essential proteins and fats. So anyway, to kind of get to this question, I want to kind of give you a bit more of, context first and a bit more education around this, because it looks different for everyone. But, this person said, how long before I reintroduce carbs? So let me give you an example of what I'm doing now, right? So like I said, haven't done carnivore since October last year. Now, just so you know how I eat is, and a lot of people perform well doing this. I have a lot of clients doing this as well. I'll eat mainly I'll just eat protein and fats in the daytime, very low carbs. The only carbohydrates I'll have is coming from like an avocado. So I'll have my meat, even when I'm eating just my normal pattern of eating, I'll have that. I'll sometimes have dark chocolate, tell a lie. Not now, obviously, because I'm eating, carnivore keto. I don't even want to label it that. I'm just basically cutting down on carbs. No, let's just call it carnivore keto, right? For argument's sake. So I'll normally do that. Sometimes I have a bit of dark chocolate, but it's high fat mainly, right? 85%, 90% I actually have dark chocolate. But for the first meal, so for the day, I'll have one big meal. I'll have my meat, my eggs, my avocado, maybe some olive oil, maybe some dark chocolate for that first meal. By the way, that's really calorie dense. Going back to what I said earlier, most of the calories we get are going to come from fats. There's 9 calories in a gram of fat, whereas only 4 calories in a gram of carbs, and only 4 calories in a gram of protein. Actually, only 7 calories in a gram of alcohol, believe it or not. So I'll eat that. That'll fill me up all day because I'm having high protein, loads of meat. I'm having sometimes up to 1 kilo of meat with that first meal, right? I'm getting most of my meat in that first meal. And then obviously all the fats from the meat, the eggs as well. And then obviously avocado and everything else, right? So I'm full most of the day. And then what's generally probably happened, I haven't tracked this. I haven't used a continuous glucose monitor or anything like that to track this. But what's generally going to be happening is my body is probably dipping in and out of ketosis. Maybe, maybe not. But either way, I'm not spiking my blood sugar level much throughout the daytime and giving myself a crash in energy. I'm having sustained energy from the protein and fats, right? And then in the evenings, I'll have my carbs in the evenings then, right? Not now, obviously, from yesterday, which I'll talk about, but generally I'll have, white rice. I'll have my fruits like banana and berries are my go-to normally, a bit of honey and some coconut yogurt generally in the evenings, right? And I'll have a little bit of meat as well before that. I'll probably have a small amount of meat then, like, 400 grams of meat. That's a small amount for me. And then I'll have, like I say, the rice and everything else. So that's kind of like how I do it. I'll backload my carbs in the evening. And then what happens then, I mentioned this last time, but obviously, serotonin, release more serotonin when you eat carbohydrates generally, feel more relaxed, whatever is going on there. It does sometimes give me a better sleep when I have carbs in the evening. That being said, like I said last time, metabolic flexibility is key. So, Now switching back to that, I know switching back to, carnivore, like you would when you're changing up your training, for example, I know now I'll get a good response from it. I know what happens is my gut health improves, and I get better sleep, right? And I'll have more sustained energy. I have to get used to being, I'll have to start making friends with hunger again. And I say this to clients. And my goal, by the way, is not to drop fat at all. I don't even think about losing fat, or, I do think about building muscle, to be honest, right? Because I enjoy the feet, I enjoy eating a lot, first and foremost, and I enjoy lifting weights. So that's great. But I never really think about fat loss anymore. But as a side effect of me doing this, I'll naturally drop fat simply because I'll be in a little bit of a calorie deficit because I've cut out those extra, calories from carbs essentially, and probably about 700 calories in coconut yogurt that I have in the evenings. So naturally, I'll lose fat as a side effect, although that's not my main goal. But all this to say, what you're going to look at is how long should you take before you reintroduce them? Really, you should see how you feel. And this is why, you're probably going to hate me saying this, but there's so much variance from person to person, right? And, when you look into, let's say this person wants to lose a bit of fat, I would say this is a good thing to do, because when you're going back to what I said, you're not going to feel hungry when you're having, mainly, as long as you have an adequate protein, and you're having enough fat. This is a problem, see, when people, they go into a calorie deficit and cut calories, or they switch over to like keto or carnivore, they don't actually have enough fat. So they still fall into the trap of like having lean meats like chicken breasts, maybe adding a bit of avocado here and there, but not having enough essential fats from like grass-fed beef, for example, or even salmon, getting your omega-3s through like obviously good quality, not farmed ideally, like, but even wild fish nowadays is hit and miss with the plastics in the oceans. But even so, obviously omega-3s, you're going to get from, salmon or mackerel mainly. But to be honest, that I'm not going to go into the conversation of omega-3s. I don't eat any salmon, or take any omega-3s. People will kind of debate that. I did take them for a little bit. Had my bloods done recently. My bloods are absolutely bang on. So yeah. Anyway, moving on before I waffle too much on this. What you want to do is see how you feel. Your goal is to lose fat. Allow that to be the side effect. See how your gut and energy is. And this is exactly what I'm going to do now. You'll likely notice, because what you notice with carbohydrates is obviously you are consuming other stuff when you're consuming carbohydrates, right? Depending on the types that you're eating, you are going to be consuming plants when you're eating carbohydrates, right? That's where you're going to get generally, even if it's fruit, it could be rice, it could be potatoes, all coming from plants, which do have defense chemicals in them. And even if you don't want to call them defense chemicals or toxins, whatever, it's going to have certain compounds in them, which could be problematic. And this is likely why we get the immune issues, right? 80% of the immune system is located in the gut, ladies and gents, right? So if you're going to get an autoimmune response and you're going to notice your gut inflammation, you notice your digestion is, or, your stool is hit and miss, your digestion is kind of like off. I was getting gut pain last week, like I can't even tell you. So anyway, I'm going to do that and just see how I feel now. Doing that this week, I'll notice my energy. I had more sustained energy yesterday already, the first day I did it, where I just cut the carbs out and had, protein and fats. Normally I'll go strict carnivore. What I'm doing now is I'm going kind of like carno keto-ish, where I'm having, avocado, basically. That's the only plant I'm having. And maybe a little bit of olive oil I'll have if I feel like I'm lagging on energy or I'm really hungry. And that's it. Another thing I really want to touch on with you doing this, right, is people got to be really, really mindful when you cut down on carbs. You have got to make sure that you don't get dehydrated and get a sodium deficiency. So when you're not having electrolytes or enough sodium, you need to have more sodium, basically, and especially electrolytes when you are cutting down on carbs, because number one, it's very easy to get dehydrated. Think about it, right? When you cut carbohydrates turn into water. So, 1 gram of carbs can turn into, 2 to 3 grams of water. So if you cut them out, then obviously you're going to be having less water in the body. But not only that, you need more sodium to be able, it's not about like drinking enough water. That's really important, of course. It's about how much water you're absorbing, right? So when you drink water, via a process called osmosis, it's going to, absorb into the tissues, the water and the cells. But in order for you to actually get that absorption and have the tissues absorb and hydrate you, you need to be having adequate sodium, right? And why I said electrolytes is because salt, in other words, salt the shit out of your meals. If you're eating whole foods, regardless of high or low carbs, you should be adding salt to your meals. Anyway, I use Richmond red salt. And that's really good quality because even like pink Himalayan salt has a bunch of microplastics in now they found. So yeah, you want to be making sure you're doing that. Otherwise, you can end up dehydrated. You can get cramps, you can get headaches and all that kind of stuff when you're having low carbohydrates. So what I've done is I salt the shit out of my meals anyway. But when you have electrolytes, in other words, a little bit of magnesium and potassium combined with the sodium, then it helps with the absorption of the sodium, which then helps with the absorption of the water. So I'm not actually sponsored, but I should be because I've called them out enough times. Probably will have to get an affiliate thing going with these. LMNT, it's spelt, right? LMNT, but they pronounce it element, LMNT, right? That's what I take. And normally I'll take like one of them a day when I'm training. I'll have it in the morning when I'm training to help me hydrate in the mornings. Because again, it's about getting the water into the tissues, not just into the body. But generally I'll just have one a day. Sometimes I'll have a second one because they do these chocolate caramel ones. It's just salt. I like the taste of it. I have it with hot water in the evening sometimes. I just love the taste of it. A lot of people will think it tastes salty, but for me, it tastes super sweet because they add stevia. So that's going to come down to how much processed food you eat in terms of whether or not you like the taste of them. But yeah, that's what I take. So make sure you're having electrolytes. Ideally, worst case scenario, you're having, I would say, a gram at least or 1,000 milligrams of salt with your water in the mornings is essential if you're not having electrolytes, especially if you're low carbs, particularly if you're low carbs. Salt the shit out of your meals. But yeah, ideally, I would say electrolytes would be a little bit better, but you can get away with it normally just by adding more salt to your diet, right? So yeah, that's pretty much it, really. In terms of like when you want to reintroduce carbs, see how you feel. Obviously it's guessing when you're not doing blood work and stuff meticulously, but I don't do blood work, to be honest, when I dip in and out of these things. I get my bloods done every 3 months, but I don't do it just when I'm doing carnivore and stuff like that. I mean, you can do to see where you're at. But just go by how you feel, right? If you feel like, things to pay attention to anyway, right? Is, sleep. Is your sleep having a negative impact? Because that can definitely happen when you're cutting carbs for a long time. Are you noticing your performance and strength dipping in the gym like drastically? It will drop a little bit when you go into a deficit anyway, but are you noticing that you just got no energy in the gym? You're getting crashes in the daytime. Your gut health. Well, generally your gut probably will be better anyway when you're having low carbs. But notice, those kind of things really. And even your weight, right? If you notice that you're dropping weights at a fast rate, that's not always a good thing either. Right. So sometimes you want to bump your calories up, bump some carbs in just to reboot your metabolism, throw a curveball. So that's going to come down to personal preference. I would see how you feel. Generally, doing a month, like aim for 7 days first. That's what I'm doing to see how I feel. I might just do a week, to be honest. That's my plan, is just to do a week to 7 to 10 days anyway. But you might want to do 7 days and then see how you feel. If you feel good 30 days, fantastic. If you're still feeling absolutely awesome after 30 days, then why not keep going? I know some people that cycle it for 2 to 3 months at a time and they feel absolutely amazing. I know one guy, Dr. Benazidi, shout him out. I had him on the podcast. He was doing his bloods and his bloods just kept looking good, right up to like 3 months. And then I think his testosterone levels dropped a little bit, and then he started reintroducing carbs. So yeah, I would just like see how you feel more than anything, and kind of take it from there. But just remember, the most important things are, ladies and gents, when you're doing these things, when you're switching over to like, not everyone is in a place where they can do it, where they can just like be restrictive, because essentially that's what you're doing. Yes, you're getting most of the essential nutrients you need, or all of them actually, when you're having carnivore, if you're doing it properly, and keto. But having all the essential nutrients you need doesn't mean that it's optimal. That doesn't mean optimal just because you're getting, most of the stuff you need. That's not what that means. Optimal is generally adding in some carbohydrates, varying your food sources a little bit more, providing your gut health is good. That's the most important thing. If you start varying your food sources and you notice that, you're not shitting, sorry to be crude, or you're shitting everywhere, or you were just noticing that you're getting gut distress like I do, then you got to fix that, right? So a couple of fundamentals I want you to focus on if anyone is going to take this approach, right? And it's a disclaimer here, right? I'm not prescribing anyone try this. You've got to be very careful with these things. Most people are not in a place to do these things, to be honest, if I'm quite frank with you. My girlfriend and I are really high level with our relationship with food. And basically this is what you want to look at, right? My girlfriend and I, right? I'm going to give you an example now. There's 4 levels of competence, as most people know, right? Look at it as like driving a car, right? When you're driving a car, when you first start driving a car, you're thinking about everything. You're all over the place. You have to think about, well, in the UK, we do manual driving, right? In America, I know you do automatic. You're thinking about everything. It's very clunky when you're changing the gears. You're looking at you have to consciously look at the rear view mirror and blah, 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 blah. Everything's very clunky. You're thinking about everything. Essentially, unconscious incompetence. You're ignorant before you even drive, right? That's unconscious incompetence, right? Then when you actually start driving and learning to drive, conscious incompetence kicks in. You get the awareness, right? I need to look in my rear view mirror. I need to do this when I do my 3-point turn. Okay. I need to do X, Y, and Z, right? You start becoming aware, but you're still incompetent, right? You're not competent at driving at that point. Then when you put more work in and practice more, you get conscious competence, right? Learning. Okay. You start actually learning. You start getting above that level of awareness where things start slowly becoming a bit more automatic and everything starts making sense. Everything starts coming together. And then finally, then you got mastery, right? Which is unconscious competence where everything's just automatic, right? And it's like that with nutrition. With the driving, it's automatic, right? If you've been driving for X amount of years, you just drive and it's automatic. You're not thinking too much about it, right? But the same as with nutrition, right? It's the same kind of phases. My girlfriend and I are at the point now where everything's automatic, but even so, we can still get sucked into eating carbs for the sake of it, right? Because let's be honest, when you start eating carbohydrates, you want more of them, right? Generally, right? So we're at the point now where it's automatic and it just becomes like second nature. You're just making decisions without thinking about it with food, right? It just becomes like intuitive. Like your body wants to eat those food. I enjoy taste-wise everything I eat. And also it becomes like an internal thing where your body's signals are then in sync because those signals get hijacked when we're eating ultra-processed foods, especially if you've been really overweight. You've got to a point where you're eating the wrong types of foods, which then have made you overeat. And those signals have been hijacked, those natural signals which tell you you're full, tell you what types of food to eat, and don't mislead you into justifying eating foods which you don't need. And then you end up getting fat, right? So they're the kind of different levels. And unless you're at the point where you're at least at the conscious competence level where you've learned a lot and you haven't got poor relationship with food or self-sabotage behaviors with food where you're binge eating or hitting the off button on the weekends or finding yourself losing fat, gaining a bunch of it back and still going on that yo-yo diet and cycle, don't be doing these restrictive diets. You need to take a different approach. You need to take an approach which is sustainable. You probably need to get some support of some sort to push you in the right direction, or at least have someone around you who can, who you can learn from to get you to that level of like mastery with what you're doing. It needs to be automatic. But if you're at a good level, then that's what you want to do, right? You want to really focus on, firstly, you shouldn't be in processed foods. If you're going to do this, you're going to eat carnivore, keto, you shouldn't be in processed foods, ultra processed foods, right? You need to be in whole foods at least 90% of the time, as I always say. Otherwise, you're going to be fighting a losing battle. As soon as let's say you do a month where you go carnivore, keto, whatever, and then you start bringing in ultra processed foods again, you're fucked. Excuse the French. But then you're going to go back to old behaviors because, again, those foods are designed to make us overeat and they're going to hijack your brain. So if you're eating bare minimum, I would say 95%, single ingredient foods, bare minimum, right? Ideally 95% or more. So like I said, I mentioned the electrolytes and also nutrients. I really want to be clear about this. I eat beef liver as well, right? I love beef liver. I'm having that most days now, to be honest, anyway, with my first meal. But remember, there's unique nutrients. Now, to give you an example, how much variance there is from person to person. If we look at Dr. Anthony Chaffee, Dr. Paul Saladino, I've had them both. Well, sorry, I haven't had Saladino on yet. I'm trying to. I've had Dr. Anthony Chaffee on mine, and they actually did an interview together where Saladino interviewed him. And what they found was Chaffee doing his blood work, like he just eats primarily grass-fed beef and salt, to my knowledge. He sometimes rotates and brings in like full-fat milk. I think he was drinking full-fat milk. I'm not sure about eggs, but that's pretty much all he eats is mainly just grass-fed beef. And all his bloods were bang on. Everything was spot on, thyroid function, all that kind of stuff. Whereas Saladino noticed that if he goes strict carnivore, then his testosterone levels started plummeting. He started getting deficiencies in certain nutrients and everything else. And there's unique nutrients that you get from beef liver, for example, such as vitamin K2, right? Which is a very, very important nutrient. I'm not going to go into the depths of why all these things are important. I'm just going to touch on some of the ones that you need. Beef liver, copper and iron, right? through beef liver to get an adequate amount. Ideally, you want to be having some beef liver. Choline, which you can get choline in egg yolks, but I eat plenty of egg yolks, so I get more than enough choline anyway. But if you're not eating heaps of eggs, I don't know how many. Again, it depends on the person with absorption and everything else. It's a great source of choline. Now, for example, even well, most doctors don't know what they're talking about, right? But a small select when it comes to nutrition, of course, other stuff they do. When it comes to a small selection, when it comes to doctors who actually know what they're talking about, they actually tell with nutrition, they actually tell pregnant women to actually eat egg yolks because choline is essential for cognitive function and for brain development, especially in kids. And but for adults as well. So choline you get from beef liver, but you get that from egg yolks too. And then you've got certain B vitamins as well, which you get a high dose of through beef liver. But it depends on the person. Some people can get away with not eating liver, but I'd rather not take my chances personally, and I love the taste of it anyway. So remember, you need to be eating some beef liver, right? Even if you're having a tiny amount, well, either have a tiny amount each day, like, I don't know, even 50 to 100 grams like a day, over the space of, say, 100 grams a day, or just have like two or three, 200-gram hits of beef liver a week. You're going to get what you need then. So that's it. If you're not doing that, then you probably, to play it safe, want to get a supplement, like a beef liver supplement to take. So that's something I really wanted to touch on there anyway. Again, I know that was a long-winded answer, but I wanted to basically give you all the information that I think will benefit the person who asks this question and the audience, hopefully, that you need if you're gonna try these things, right? And just remember, a simple thing I want to touch on there as well, if you're going to do this, building muscle generally and strength, generally carbohydrates are going to benefit you more with performance. When it comes to aesthetics and getting lean, it's a lot easier to do that. And only for a period of time, though. You don't want to be doing this long term generally. When you're doing, low carbohydrates, it is easier to do that. Like I said, naturally, I'll drop fat now because I just won't eat as much and I won't be as hungry. So I'll just get leaner, right? So anyway, next question. That was a long-winded answer. Next question is, I'm going to try and be quicker with these. How do I reduce cellulite? I'm 30 years old and my body fat is 22%, and I'm happy with how lean I am, but my cellulite on my bum, just under my butt cheeks, is horrible. Well, that's okay. Also, I have it forming on my legs now, cellulite. Help. Yeah, so what I wanted to talk about first and foremost is the self-talk, right? So this person already said, she said, it's horrible, right? So again, this is going to come down to body image and the self-talk that's going on in your head. What you got to look at is firstly, and this is for men and women, right? This question, this is going to benefit both. How, if you said that to a friend, for example, right? To one of your close friends, if you said to them, it's horrible, the cellulite you got on your bum there, or on your legs, oof, horrible. Come on, like that's going to cause drama, and you eventually you're not going to have any friends left, right? If you speak like that, right? Now, don't get me wrong, there is a place to be straight up with your friends, I think, and say, look, if they ask you, like if they're lying to themselves when they're overweight and they're unhealthy, I would 100% call them on that and say, look, you got to do something about this. You're overweight. What's going on? You know what I mean? But when it comes to the way you say things and the self-talk, you wouldn't say that to a friend, first and foremost. Secondly, you're going to have a pattern in your brain now where you're using these words, and you got to have a mindset shift, right? So what I've done with a few clients who had major body image issues is I would get them to repattern the way they think about their body, right? So, rather than looking in the mirror, like for example, when you're naked, looking in the mirror and saying to yourself, oh, these legs or this cellulite around my cheeks is horrible. Look at the parts of you, but like some people don't have, like, look at how lucky we are. Right. We've most of us, like, listening to this, hopefully, we've got legs, we can walk, we basically are able to go to the gym. We're able to, run half marathons and all that kind of stuff. And we're very fortunate, right? We take these things for granted, even just like if you're able to, like, I write this in my journal anyway, like I'm so thankful for my eyesight, just to be able to see all the beauty in my life. Thank you. And just those simple things. But, looking in the mirror and going, well, okay, all right, okay, I don't like the cellulite on my thing, but these legs can squat 100K, or these legs just leg pressed 150K, but I ran a half marathon, or even I just ran a 5K with these. Like, this is awesome. Look how strong I am. And you've got to just positive affirmations, I guess. And just it's a mindset shift. It's looking at what your body can do rather than your flaws. Now, humans are always going to be wired to look for their flaws, and essentially, like, look at the negative stuff because we're conditioned that way. But That is going to be a mindset issue. So yeah, and moving on to what you can do to overcome this cellulite issue, right? First and foremost, just remember that, right? You've got to, speak to yourself like you would a best friend, essentially, right? Speak to yourself like you would a best friend. Really powerful thing to remember when you catch yourself using these words, right? So cellulite, it can develop on the thighs because, this area generally has more fatty tissue, right? Especially, generally with females, generally, right? But there's a lot of other, factors that can contribute to this, right? You've got age, estrogen levels, right? So obviously the hormone profile of the female, family history, tissue inflammation, increased fatty tissue, caused by weight gain can cause this. Loss of collagen, especially as we age, right? We lose collagen. Poor circulation is a very common issue, especially around the legs. Lymphatic, issues with like lymphatic drainage is something that can be an issue, right? So I don't know anyone who's overcome this by doing sports massage, but I did actually read into some research, or at least some, I don't know whether it was a little bit of research, but it was like theory and stuff, that sports massage can actually help with some cases of cellulite, because it can help with the lymphatic drainage, because fluid can build up essentially and cause like fatty deposits. So that can help. But I don't know anyone personally who's said that has helped. But let me just give you an example of a client recently, just last week, actually. She said to me, I actually noticed in the gym, she wasn't looking for it, but she was in the gym, and she noticed that a cellulite, I've been coaching her for 6 weeks, she noticed that it was drastically improving. And it is kind of luck of the draw. I've noticed with a lot of females that the cellulite has really improved. Some females, it didn't improve much. So it is kind of luck of the draw, going back to the factors I mentioned there: genetics, estrogen levels, all that kind of stuff, family history. Genetics, that is, same thing. So she noticed that, and she noticed the cellulite was reducing drastically. So she was kind of lucky. So building muscle and actually filling the skin out will actually help generally a little bit with cellulite. But this person, I think, is already training. Oh, she didn't mention she was training, but she's 22% body fat, which, by the way, is super lean for a woman, super lean. And I wanted to say this as well. Like, my girlfriend is mega lean. If I had to say a body fat percentage, is probably around about like I shouldn't guess this on air, right? Because you might listen back to this. You'd be like, what the fuck? No, but I'm just going to guess, give or take, it's around about 20%. She's mega lean, my girlfriend, right? And she still has cellulite, right? And I didn't even notice it, but she honestly didn't notice it, but she pointed it out and she's aware of it. And this is even her, like, she's really proud, really confident of her body, super confident, which is one of the things that really attracts me to her. But she's had to do a lot of work to get there. And she even looks at that, she's in incredible shape, right? And she will pick up on that and look at them. And also, even when I used to compete back in the day, there used to be females used to get on stage with even lower body, we're talking getting down to like 15% body fat, right? And that's like shredded for a woman. And they would still have cellulite, right? So if you can get super lean, and unfortunately it won't go for some women, right? So it's one of them things of body acceptance, which is why I wanted to touch on that at the start. Body compassion and body acceptance are key. So yeah, just to give you an example, right? But another thing you can do is build muscle and really focus on the exercise. Let's just say you've got it in the legs and around by the bum. With this person in particular, obviously hip thrust for the glutes are great. But more importantly, doing things like step ups, side lunges, or any different types of lunges, like a front lunge, reverse lunge. Side lunges, people don't do. That's why I said that, because I actually had my girlfriend doing them for the first time recently, and the clients I get doing them, people don't do them. So novelty is key. So you want to try different exercise that you haven't done, but compound exercise, not all this, fancy bullshit using machines. You want to be doing the free weights, the compound stuff. So all different types of lunges, whether that's reverse lunge, side lunge, a step up, switch from barbell to dumbbells when you're doing the lunges as well. Obviously squats, vary in your squats, but obviously focusing on doing a proper barbell squat with a bar on your back. If you can work up to doing that, that's a skill. 8 out of 10 people can't do it properly. But if you can work on your technique and getting good at squatting, that's going to, hopefully help, because it's going to help you build muscle, of course. Different variations of deadlifts. So whether that's a single leg Romanian deadlift, which is underrated. Most people don't do it. Again, novelty. Romanian deadlifts, sumo deadlifts from the ground, even trap bar deadlifts. Again, I've just had my girlfriend doing them. You got to look at novelty and throwing a curveball for the body, going back to what I was saying with nutrition, right? And it's like that anyway for building muscle if you want to maximize results. It doesn't mean you keep chopping and changing exercise all the time, though. You want to stick with the exercise long enough so you get good. So when you go into the gym, rather than looking at, right, I've got to get rid of this cellulite and lose the fat. Okay, how can I maximize results in terms of building muscle? And how I need to focus on making each exercise a skill. Each exercise is a skill. How can I get better at each movement as opposed to going in there and looking at it like a workout? Look at it like practice, get better, get stronger, get more efficient at the movements. And that's going to get you your best bang for your buck with building muscle. And then hopefully, depending on the person, that will help then with the cellulite. Obviously, fat loss as well can help, but that's that really. So hope that was helpful. Only got time to answer one more question now, to be honest. Which one do I pick? I think the stubborn fat one I've done before. I'm going to get into this. Let me have a look at this now. So stubborn fat. So we've got one question, which is on stubborn fat, which I kind of touched on a little bit then. A guy wanted to lose stubborn body fat, blah, 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 blah. And then the other one is about self-sabotage behaviors, which I've answered all these before in different ways. Let me see what I can do. Right. So this question is a 40, because he's gone into so much detail. I don't want to miss this one. It's taking the piss. 42-year-old man, right? Stubborn body fat around the midsection and lower back. I've noticed the fat increase fast over the past 2 to 3 years. Since turning 40, nothing has really changed in my diet and lifestyle. I lift weights consistently 4 days a week, and I do HIIT cardio on the bike or treadmill twice just to keep the fat off and stay healthy and fit. I eat good in the week and allow myself some treats with the kids on the weekend. I have 2 kids. I do upper-lower split. So I do my 4 sessions. I do 1 upper body push, 1 upper body pull, and 2 leg sessions. Weights Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, cardio weekend, rest Wednesday. Okay, so I never tried bulking because I'm afraid of gaining fat. What should I do? So, yeah, I want to answer this one. So basically, first and foremost, right, in order to lose stubborn fat. So with guys, right, this is what happens with guys generally, right? First place you're going to store it is going to be the stomach, right, around the waist. Second place then, if you've gained a fair bit of fat, is going to be on the lower back, right? And then the third place then, if your body fat percentage is even higher, is going to be around the chest, right? Around the chest. So, and for women, it's gonna be, midsection. It's gonna, like I said earlier, it's gonna be more around the hips, and also the thighs a bit more as well, right? And even I've noticed, like with women as well, arms as well, a little bit more than guys generally, like, where the tricep is and stuff, right? So this is gonna apply to everyone. So what you gotta look at, right, with this person in particular, to be specific, is, it sounds like you're really consistent and disciplined with training and everything else. But what you'll want to do, I don't know how long you've been doing this type of training. It sounds like it's just your routine. So what you want to do firstly is you want to, in no particular order, you want to switch up your training. To anyone listening to this, stubborn fat you want to lose, right? This is what you need to do. Let me just make a little note of this before I forget as well, because there's a point I want to touch on, which I haven't made a note of here. You want to switch up your training, right? So for this guy, to be specific, let's say you go into the gym 4 times a week anyway, rather than doing your, because what's happening here, you're hitting legs twice, which is great, but you're hitting upper body twice, but you're only hitting, you're doing push and pull. So you're probably doing like chest, you're probably doing chest, shoulders, and, push would be, for anyone listening, chest, shoulders, triceps, right? Pushing movements. And then the pulling is going to be back, biceps, right? Basically. So you're only hitting those body parts once. You're doing, if that makes sense, you're doing, shoulders, triceps, and chest once, and you're doing back and biceps once instead of twice or 3 times. So we want more frequency there first and foremost. So what I would say is keep doing your 4. There's 2 options, right? You could do the 4 sessions that you're already doing. And what I would do is I would do a full body, for example, on a Monday. Then you could do a leg session on a Tuesday. Then you could do full body on Thursday, and then an upper body on Friday. But rather than doing push-pull for upper body, do the whole of the upper body on both of those days. So do 1 or 2 exercises per body part. So for example, you could do bench press, pull-ups, shoulder press, bicep curls, tricep extension, right? So that's 5 exercises for upper body. You could do more than that for every upper body part, right? If that makes sense. And then on the other upper body session, you could do a full body again. So you could do incline bench press, cable row, lateral raises for shoulders, and you could do an overhead press as well for shoulders, because shoulders is like a few different parts. And then you could do, cable bicep curls and then cable tricep push down, right? So you're doing the whole upper body. And then you're going to hit every upper body part twice. And also when you're doing the full body then, on a Monday, hang on, what did I say there? Yeah, Monday full body, you're hitting every body part, but it's key that you do a moderate intensity, so you're not hammering every body part, 45 minutes to an hour in total, right? Including like mobility, hopefully you're doing at the start, just one exercise per body part, for example, right? Moderate intensity, not hard, not loads of volume, but spreading the volume out instead of hammering, hammering your legs, for example, or hammering upper body. You're doing the full body at a moderate intensity with one exercise per body part. You do the legs on a Thursday, and then you would do full body Thursday, and then legs on a Friday. But again, you're not going to be sore from doing upper body. You might feel like you've done something, but you're not hammering your body. And what that's going to do is that means you're going to hit each body part more often. So you're hitting your legs 3 times. You're not hammering them, but you're hitting legs 3 times because you're doing 2 full bodies, 1 legs. And you're also hitting upper body 3 times in a week, but you're doing it in a smart way where you're not hammering each body part. But it's really, it's hard to explain on a podcast. It's really important you don't push it too hard, because you're going to impede. Let's say you do full body on a Monday and you go too hard and you're really sore on a Tuesday. You're not going to get the most out of the Tuesday session, and your body's going to prioritize recovery over adapting, right? So it's scale back the intensity basically and volume, and spread it out and be smarter with it, right? So that's what I would say. The other option is you could do 3 full body sessions, and then on the days, okay, this is really important. So say you do the 4 weights. Anyone listening, this is going to help with stubborn fat and results, right? Let's say you do 4 weights. Instead of doing 2 cardios, cut 1 cardio out. Keep the 1 cardio in, right? Just for your fitness and health. And then on that other session, either add in another weight training session if you can find time to do that. Actually, better, yeah, just in case you overdo the intensity, add in bands. So instead of doing 2 cardio, 4 weights, do the 4 weight sessions that I mentioned, but hit the body parts more frequently and do the workouts I said. And then do a band session on the day you're doing HIIT cardio. Do like a 15-minute full body band session, say 5 exercises, rubber bands. Check out my YouTube channel, right? Type in Martin Silva pump up, and you'll get 3 pump up sessions. Again, it's low intensity. You'll understand the concepts if you watch the video rather than me explaining it for 10 minutes here. Do that instead on one of the HIIT sessions. So you're standing a strength signal and you're speeding your metabolism up. Keep the 1 cardio in, and then what you could even do then is just add in an extra band session then, just on the Wednesday when you have the recovery day, 10 to 15-minute band session, just a light pump up, right? If you can fit that in, watch what happens. You'll notice your metabolism speed up. You'll likely drop some fat straight away. Remember, I always talk about this all the time, but when you're doing cardio, you're automatically burning calories. Sorry, you're manually burning calories, right? You're burning calories at the time, but you're not getting the elevation. You're not getting the afterburn afterwards. You're not burning calories afterwards. With weights, you're getting your body to automatically burn more calories. So your metabolism's elevated after, for up to 2 days after lifting weights. And also your body then is, when you build muscle, then obviously your body has to burn more calories just to keep that muscle on your body. So it's automatically burning more calories by itself. And that's what we want to really focus on if you want to lose stubborn body fat and you really want to, get into the shape of your life aesthetically. Another simple little kind of equation I like to use is, imagine you went to the gym, let's say, even this individual, right? And the thing is, you've probably been doing HIIT cardio for a long time, so your body's adapted. That's all it is. If you do HIIT cardio properly, it's similar to doing strength training. If you cycled it for like 3-4 weeks, any longer than 3-4 weeks, just like any other training phase, your body's going to adapt and results are going to diminish. So that's probably what's happened here. But if you were doing, let's just say someone goes to the gym and they do 30 minutes of cardio, right? Or 20 to 30 minutes of HIIT cardio, 30 minutes, let's say. Forget about that. You go to the gym, because most people don't do that, right? They go to the gym, they do cardio. Let's say you go to the gym and you do like let's just say an hour of cardio, right? You do an hour of cardio, you go on the treadmill, you're walking, or you're doing cross trainer for an hour, or mixing it up and doing cardio for an hour, versus going to the gym and lifting weights for like 45 minutes, let's say. You're going to be burning calories when you do cardio for about 5% of your day, right? Give or take, if you're there for an hour, 5% of your day, roughly. Whereas when you are lifting weights, your body's going to be burning calories for like 50% of the day, because for like, especially 12 hours, give or take, after lifting weights, the muscle protein synthesis is at its highest, and your metabolism is going to be really elevated and burning more calories, right? As it tries to adapt and essentially recover from the insult you put it through in the gym, right? But up to, 1 to 2 days, that anabolic signal is going to be loud. In other words, your metabolism is going to be elevated, right? So, that's what you're going to look at. You want to burn more calories automatically for longer periods of time, rather than just going to the gym and just burning some calories at the time and then going about your day and then you're not having the afterburn afterwards, if that makes sense with cardio, right? So really think about that, right? And think about what signal am I sending? I want to send a strength signal. I want to send a signal of pro tissue, in other words, building muscle. And I want to get my metabolism to burn more calories to shift some of this stubborn fat, right? But obviously, I'm not going to say this is the most important thing, because I think training and nutrition are both very, very important, because the training has to be appropriate, and it has to be structured for you, for what your goals are. But, obviously nutrition, a few things that, I noticed this person said, for example, and this is, most people can relate to this, I like to have a few treats with the kids on the weekend, which is great, right? The bottom line is you need to have flexibility. You need to enjoy sometimes some of those foods with your kids, right? I totally get that. My best clients do the same thing. But what you look at is, what's happening. You haven't mentioned about, tracking your food or how many calories you're having. So I'm assuming you're not tracking, or you've never tracked, or you have no awareness in terms of how many calories you're consuming, how much protein you're having. And if you don't, then you're guessing, basically, right? So what I see, some common things I see with people, right, when they're not losing fat or not losing stubborn fat, is they are grossly under eating protein, especially on weekends. So in the week, for example, let's just say, I'm just going to guess with this guy, he's eating well in the week, so he's structured with his food. He's having maybe adequate protein. Then on the weekends, having a few treats here and there and everything else, what you see is people grossly under-eat protein on the weekends. And then when we grossly under-eat protein, we don't realize, when we're having quote unquote treats or foods that we don't cook ourselves or ultra-processed foods, what we don't realize is actually we're consuming a lot more calories than what we think. Number one, for example, if we look at America, for example, they're allowed to be on food labels. They're allowed to be up to 20 to 30% out on food labels. Just digest that for a second. Obviously, they're always going to put less calories on the label, of course, to sell more product as well. So let's just say, for argument's sake, even 20%, right? Let's say you're eating some of those foods, right? Let's just say even 20% of your diet was coming out of packets, right? 20%, right? Let's say you're consuming, you think you're consuming like, 1,500 calories a day. Add 20%. Okay, I'm not doing the maths well here, but you see where I'm going with this, right? I'm not good at maths. I just like quit with the maths. 20% more, right? So you even if you're tracking, right? You're tracking your food, you think, oh, I'm not having many calories, and then you're having up to 20% more, maybe even 30% more. That adds up to not like the difference between losing fat and not losing fat, or even gaining weight and not gaining it, right? But yeah, people grossly under-eat protein on the weekends. And then when you're not having, adequate protein, you're naturally replacing those calories with fats and carbs. Fats and carbs generally make us want to eat more. When you're eating out, there's more oils in those foods, which rack up more calories. And we're eating way more than we think. And I think the average person who doesn't track, they underestimate their calories that they eat by about 50%, right? So double the amount of calories people are eating than what they say they're doing. And the average person as well, they say that they eat 3 times a day. They're actually eating 8 times a day. They're mindless eating. A lot of people are just snacking. I'm not saying this is you, but you just got to bear in mind human behavior. When you don't have the awareness, you're simply eating more calories than what you think. And you're potentially grossly under eating protein as well, on top of that, which makes you eat more because protein blunts your appetite. So there could be that. Another big one I want to touch on here, ladies and gents, is the fats. Going back to what I said at the start, oils, right? It blows my mind that even though, when I onboard clients, I actually have a specific video on this, on like things like oils and fats, to make sure you're being aware of those foods. Because when you're having things like olive oil, for example, people cook their food in olive oil. Yeah, I have like, 2 or 3 tablespoons of olive oil when I cook my food. Yeah. But they're not aware of it, right? Okay, bang, 300 calories, right? That you're not aware of in one day. Let's say you did that every day, right? 1,500 calories over the space of a week. Oh, you can see how shit I am at maths, can't you? Jesus Christ. 2,100 calories over the space of a week extra you're eating, right? Again, potentially the difference between losing fat and not losing fat, or gaining weight and not gaining weight, right? So oils such as, your butters, your ghee oils, your olive oils, your coconut oils, hidden oils that you get in food when you eat out, right? Like overestimate. That's why I say to clients, when you're eating out, if you are tracking, some of my clients are, some of them are not, then you need to be overestimating the food you're eating, right? So if you track in there, you had a meal out and it's coming up at like, I don't know, add 20% calories on top to play it safe because of those oils, right? So yeah, you got to be aware of those oils, like, really mindful of those things, because they can add up. If you're tracking, anyone listening to this, if you are tracking food, like make sure you're ideally weighing those oils. Like literally, put the pan, when you put in the pan on the thing, and put the pan on the scales, on your food weighing scales, if you have them. Put the oil in the pan and see what the weight is on the scales. Some scales don't pick them up, a lot of them do though, and it might come up to, I don't know, 30 grams or 20 grams in weight. Be aware of that, because 10 grams or maybe 15 grams of olive oil, I think, is about 100 calories. So if you're not accounting for those things, or at least being aware of those things, and that can be a game changer within itself, just not adding oils to foods. Just don't add oils for a bit, right? And you'll see what happens. You actually probably will lose a little bit of fat potentially, right? Because it's like thousands of calories generally over the space of a week. So that's a simple one as well. So yeah, there's one more thing I wanted to say though, in terms of stubborn fat, right? And specifically now with stubborn fat is, if, you want to change up the way you train, I've already given you the answer. But what you got to look at is, let me give you an example of some clients, right, where they've got to a really good level, and they've built a tremendous amount of muscle. They've got a great physique, right, but they're still carrying stubborn fat. And we all have a bit of stubborn fat anyway, but they're really getting frustrated with the excess fat they may be carrying around their stomach, right? A little bit of excess fat they're not happy with. So what we got to look at is, when you get to a point where you built a lot of muscle, you've got to a good level with your understanding with nutrition, you're consistently hitting protein and everything else. What you got to look at, and with your training as well, mini cuts and mini bulks. So you have to get to a good level, to be honest, first, in terms of where your metabolism is automatically burning plenty of calories. You got to get to that point where you built a respectable amount of muscle on your body first anyway, before you, number one, look good aesthetically. Number two, you can get away with way more calories. And number three, it's actually easier to lose stubborn fat when you have more muscle on your body, and when you basically have a good understanding of strength training. So what I would say is mini cuts and mini bulks. So let's say you got stubborn fat, this person said they're afraid of bulking, right? In particular. So, well, you obviously need the bulk, you need the bulk, right? When I say bulk, you need to build muscle. That doesn't mean gaining fat. You'll actually lose a bit of fat and build muscle if you do it right, for a period of time anyway, at least for a good few months minimum. But you want to, mini cuts and mini bulks. So basically, going back to the first question, right? This person, now they're cutting out carbs. Perhaps they'll naturally, and they want to lose fat, perhaps they'll naturally eat less calories if they're not adding a stupid amount of oils to their foods, of course, because that's another thing on keto. People add loads of oils and fats, and they actually get fatter, right? Because most of the calories are in fats. You really got to be aware of that. People always talk about sugar. Well, if you add in fats, it's very easy to get fat, essentially, right? If you're not mindful. So going back to what I said, naturally you do a mini cut, right? Okay, I'm gonna go carnivore for 4 weeks. I'm naturally gonna do that now, right? Oh, no, I'm not. Forget about me. I might only do this for a week, but I'm gonna basically do 4 weeks of carnivore. So naturally, I'm eating less food. So I'm gonna trim a bit of fat. Okay. And I always, with clients, generally for the average person, 4 weeks of doing the same training phase is the sweet spot, and then we switch the training stimulus and do a different type of training. So what I'll do is I'll coincide it with that. So, okay, you want to lose some body fat. We've built a good amount of muscle. We've got your metabolism. We've fixed your metabolism now, because ultimately most people listening to this, you need to fix your metabolism, right? Because you've damaged it from yo-yo dieting and trying to lose fat, gaining the back and everything else. You need to fix your metabolism. It's not always a fact that you can't lose stubborn fat, or the diet doesn't work for me losing stubborn fat. What I'm doing is not working. No, actually, you had some success with the diet. So is it actually the diet that you're doing, or is it just your body's lost the ability to lose weight, to lose fat, or to lose stubborn fat, right? You need to fix your metabolism. That's what I actually help people with. So when I got my clients to that level where we fix that, develop their metabolism, spend a good amount of time, building their physique, getting them great results, getting stronger, then I'll go, okay, mini cut, let's go. So we'll, cut out certain foods, and basically we'll do that for 3-4 weeks. And we'll coincide that with a specific type of training to make the most of it, depending on the client. And bang, they'll lose some fat, some stubborn fat. But then we'll put them straight back into, for 4 weeks, back into a little, I'll call it like a mini bulk, where we bump their calories up. They don't gain fat though. We just give them enough calories so they can actually build muscle, and recharge the metabolism. And then bang, after another 4 weeks, we can go into a mini cut. So mini bulk, and that just kind of chips away at the stubborn fat then. But again, it really depends on the person. It really depends on, number one, what kind of, how much of a reservoir of fat have you got to lose? And number two, what have you been doing in the past, in order to, with your training history and everything else, right? It looks different for everyone, but mini cuts and mini bulks are key for really trimming down stubborn fat. Anyway, ladies and gents, I did go into depth with a lot of those questions. And I hope that was helpful. Remember, that was a lot of information. It's not about the information. It's more about, what can you implement? What can you take away from this, right? Ask yourself that question. Put it in your notes. Top, 1 to 3 takeaways from that. What can I do that can help me improve? Finally, I just want to remind you, right? Don't forget the scholarship. It's in the show notes. If you listen to this podcast and you're thinking, I want to get to the next level, I want to get into the shape of my life in the next 3 months, I want to drop this, weight or whatever it is you want to achieve. Obviously, I can't help everyone, but you fill out that form. It'll take you not long at all, right? And you're going to be, in the run-ins. You'll have a chance to win free coaching for 3 months. And also, not only that, 6 people who enter this competition are still going to get partial scholarship, right? So you're still going to get scholarship. So, yeah. I mean, don't miss this if you're thinking about getting involved with my program and really, changing your life. Ultimately, this is going to be a transformation with your body and lifestyle. So anyway, ladies and gents, over and out. Speak soon.